left, right and centre, and what a packed political day this has been. As we speak, senior opposition leaders are gathered at Sharad Pawar's residence here in Delhi, including Rahul Gandhi and Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. That's very interesting and very important given the animosity that has been there between the Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party. So does this mean that these two parties are now on board as part of a larger alliance? This meeting at Mr. Pawar's residence that is currently underway comes after a day-long dharna by opposition leaders from across 15 political parties to save democracy, quote-unquote, a platform that was raised by the Aam Aadmi Party here in Delhi. Mamata Banerjee has flown in for it, so has Chandrababu Naidu, and other opposition leaders also present throughout the day, the Samajwadi Party, other parties, 15 parties in all, as we said. But what's interesting now is this meeting that is currently on at Sharad Pawar's residence, including Congress President Rahul Gandhi and Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. My colleague Sunetra Chaudhary joining us with more. Sunetra, tell us more. I mean, how should we be looking at these meetings?
Well, this is, on the face of it, they'll always say that, look, this is not a one-on-one meeting. It doesn't indicate in any way that Rahul Gandhi and Arvind Kejriwal are now going in for an understanding. That would be the kind of official version of it. However, we have known and we've spoken to people in the Congress and in the Aam Aadmi Party, and they have confirmed to us for quite some time now that there has been direct top leadership level negotiations that are on for some kind of understanding. And that is because a lot of the other leaders, you see in that picture there, Farooq Abdullah. Remember, Farooq Abdullah at a previous meeting, agitation in Jantar Mantar, had in fact told them that if you don't all swallow your ego, then you will all lose, because it has to be a one-on-one fight. It has to be a BJP versus the rest. And it's interesting in that context to see Farooq Abdullah in that meeting with, of course, Arvind Kejriwal and Rahul Gandhi. Of course, the kind of other optics to it are all wrong. We've seen Sheila Dikshit, before her even Ajay Maken. One felt that after Ajay Maken had moved away, perhaps Sheila Dikshit would be more open to it. However, she's gone on record to say that there is no question of having an AAP alliance. In fact, we've seen a lot of the AAP leaders also being announced for their candidacy, and instead of just having two, which is Atishi and Raghav Chatta. However, it seems that in this picture, it looks like, and they're public with it, that there is still room for negotiations, because they are being pushed together by a lot of the other parties as well to come up with some kind of arrangement. But what those are, whether there is a negotiation, whether there is an agreement already or not, is something that we'll find out in just a bit, right, because those are not being done by any. We know that some of the Rajya Sabha MPs were being emissaries. They were talking to Sanjay Singh, who's another Aam Aadmi Party Rajya Sabha MP, but we don't know exactly what's going to come out of it.
Right. Well, the pictures we have were actually just sent a few minutes ago. You can't see Rahul Gandhi there. In fact, ANI has just sent a photograph of Rahul Gandhi driving into Mr. Pawar's residence. If we could just bring that up. But the other people, as Sunetra is mentioning, you can see there Dr. Farooq Abdullah sitting there. Arvind Kejriwal is there. Mamata Banerjee, also Chandrababu Naidu, all of them present at Mr. Pawar's residence. The other interesting thing that we're focusing on tonight as we look at these opposition meetings, Sunetra, is the possibility that perhaps the Congress is now also very keen in Uttar Pradesh to reach out to the Samajwadi Party and look at perhaps being part of that Gathbandhan between the SP and the BSP. What can you tell us about that? And apparently Priyanka Gandhi Vadra is the one who's involved.
Well, that's right. There seems to be a fresh move by the Congress to try and initiate that possible Mahagathbandhan alliance just once more. In fact, what we are told is that the ground has been set, and what remains now is for Priyanka Gandhi Vadra to move and speak directly with Akhilesh Yadav. They tell us that Akhilesh Yadav is completely on board. He is very willing to have the Congress as part of it. He also believes in that theory and the ethos saying that you have to be all united against the BJP. However, what is a stumbling block is the fact that the Congress wants a respectable number of seats in that alliance, not less than 8, because they feel some of those seats, whether it is Kanpur, whether it is Unnao, whether it is Pratapgarh or Barabanki, they think that they have a good chance in those seats, apart from, of course, their pocket boroughs of Amethi and of Raebareli.
Right.
So they want that. However,
Right,
the Samajwadi Party leaders point out, and this is where they're stuck, is that they can't just give it out of their own quota. They have 38 each between the BSP and the SP. In order to have this as a part of the alliance, they need to also give some from the BSP, because they point out if they give about 10 seats, then they'll be left with 28, and they can't really afford to do that. So will Behenji agree or not? This is something what we've been told is that you can't rule out the fact.
It's very clear that it's like very fast-paced political developments as we're heading closer and closer to those election dates being announced perhaps in the next couple of weeks. So thanks for perspective on that. And in fact, all of this that we're talking about today is happening on a day when the opposition was actually gobsmacked just hours earlier, when Mulayam Singh Yadav, the former head of the Samajwadi Party, actually stood up in Parliament on the last day of Parliament and praised Narendra Modi and said, I hope you come back as Prime Minister. And, he said it. A lot of the opposition leaders sitting around him looked stunned. Sonia Gandhi broke into a smile. She was sitting right next to him. And Mr. Modi was very effusive in his thanks, which came a little bit later. Let's take a look.
मैं प्रधानमंत्री जी को बधाई देना चाहते हैं। प्रधानमंत्री जी, आपने भी सबसे मिलजुल करके और सबका काम किया। ये सही है कि हम जब मिले किसी काम के लिए कहा तो आपने उसी पर ऑर्डर किया। ये मैं आपका यहाँ पर आदर करता हूँ, सम्मान करता हूँ कि प्रधानमंत्री जी ने सबको लेके चलने का पूरा प्रयास किया। मेरी कामना है कि जितने माननीय सदस्य हैं दोबारा फिर जीत गया। ये हमारी इच्छा है। मैं तो ये भी चाहता हूँ, हम लोग तो इतना बहुमत नहीं आ सकते हैं, प्रधानमंत्री जी आप फिर बने प्रधानमंत्री।
मैं आदरणीय मुलायम सिंह जी का विशेष रूप से आभारी हूँ। उनका स्नेह हमारे लिए बहुत मूल्यवान है, सबके लिए मूल्यवान है। सभी वरिष्ठ जनों का स्नेह मूल्यवान होता है।
Well, as I said, that as Mulayam Singh Yadav was saying this in Parliament, just a short distance away from Parliament at Jantar Mantar here in Delhi, you had opposition parties, 15 of them, that had come together to save democracy, as they put it, to protest against the Modi government, including Mamata Banerjee, Chandrababu Naidu, Arvind Kejriwal and other leaders. In fact, the common thread between all of them in their speeches today was the whole narrative against the Modi government and Mr. Modi in particular. But importantly, Mamata Banerjee has for the first time said that she's willing to work with the Congress and the left at a national level, even if they have a rivalry at the state level.
आने वाला दिन इकट्ठा होकर हम लोग लड़ेंगे। हमारा साथ कांग्रेस सीपीएम का जो भी फाइट रहेगा स्टेट में रहेगा, नेशनल लेवल में हम लोग एक साथ में करेंगे। ये हमारा बड़ा दिल से हम कह दिया है।
Well, lots to talk about tonight. Here in the studio with us, Amit Jamai, spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. Mr. Deshratan Nigam is back with us this evening. Raghav Chadha, national spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party. And Ruhi Tiwari, associate editor of The Print, is with us. Raghav Chadha, to you first. Your boss is sitting there in Mr. Pawar's residence. Yes. Rahul Gandhi is there. What should we make of this meeting, Raghav?
I think a big successful rally was held earlier today by all opposition leaders, and one clear message that has gone out today is that we need to safeguard India's constitution, India's democracy from this anti-democratic dictatorial duo of Mr. Modi and Mr. Amit Shah. As far as this meeting at the residence is concerned, various political leaders cutting across party lines meet each other from time to time. I think after the successful conclusion of today's big protest, big rally, all leaders got together to have a cup of tea. I don't think there's necessary to look into this entire meeting.
Can you tell me the last time Rahul Gandhi and Arvind Kejriwal had a cup of tea together, Raghav? When was the last time Rahul Gandhi and Arvind Kejriwal had a cup of tea together?
Right, so there are various occasions. For example, when I had in fact travelled with Mr. Kejriwal to Patna for swearing in of Mr. Nitish Kumar,
but that's
the Bihar
different from a
Chief
meeting
Minister,
at Sharad Pawar's house where all opposition leaders gather together,
no? And they met. They also met at Well, there are multiple occasions where political leaders, political parties, leaders of different parties meet each other at various forums, whether it's the Rashtrapati Bhavan, whether it's swearing in ceremonies, whether it's meeting at somebody's house. I think there is no need to look at this from the perspective of electoral alliances or coming together of AAP with any other political party. I think we've made our position amply clear that as far as politics of Delhi is concerned, Congress is irrelevant. They have 0 seats in the Lok Sabha, they have 0 seats in the Vidhan Sabha as far as politics of Delhi is concerned. And if there is one political party that can defeat the BJP in Delhi, that happens to be the Aam Aadmi Party. And I think that message has gone out very well today from today's rally, that in whichever part of the country, if there is a force to reckon with, if there is a force that can defeat the BJP, then that force needs to be supported.
So you're saying as the AAP spokesperson tonight that the Congress, you're saying that the Congress has 0 relevance in Delhi, and Mr. Kejriwal and Rahul Gandhi still in that meeting at Mr. Pawar's house. Ruhi Tiwari, just to get your perspective on that, how should we then be looking, at this? Clearly, it's more than just a cup of tea after a long day, no?
Right. Well, clearly, Nidhi, Raghav, who's a part of the Aam Aadmi Party, has denied that there is going to be any alliance between the Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party. Then I suppose that is that. As he's saying, it's perhaps just a group of opposition parties getting together at the end of Parliament. But the problem, Nidhi, is that this is precisely what the opposition has been doing. It's been sending these very, very conflicting signals. Now I know that the opposition is not a homogeneous unit. It's various players with diverse interests, diverse states they come from. However, despite that, there has been no cohesion at all that seems to be emerging from the opposition. It's been a very, very conflicting coming together of parties. Every day we see some of them coming together, some of them speaking against each other. The same thing has happened with the Samajwadi Party and Congress, as you were discussing earlier. In UP earlier, they said we'll fight separately. Now they want to fight together. So really, I think if the opposition wants to have a serious shot at power in the 2019 elections, they need to have a better strategy and a more coordinated strategy instead of these piecemeal attempts they keep doing every day.
Right. Well, what Ruhi Tiwari says, Amit Jamai, let me take that to you, that maybe people are getting confused signals. Even what Mamata Banerjee said, I'm going to fight with the left and the Congress at the national level, even if we are fighting against each other at the state level. I mean, aren't people actually going to be confused by this?
नहीं देखिए निधि, अगर आप इसको स्टेट वाइज देखें, मतलब उत्तर प्रदेश में जो स्टेक है, जो मतलब हमारा ये मानना है मेरे नेता अखिलेश यादव जी का, कि जिन राज्यों में जो लोग आरएसएस बीजेपी का ये जो रथ है रोकने का की जो सकत रखते हैं, वो उन राज्यों में अपनी जिम्मेदारी इस मुल्क के लिए, इस देश के लिए, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के लिए वो निभाएं। और उत्तर प्रदेश में वो जिम्मेदारी बीएसपी, समाजवादी पार्टी और आरएलडी, ये तीनों चीजें वहां पे तय हो चुकी हैं, जिसमें हमने 2 सीटें कांग्रेस के लिए हमने छोड़ी हैं। और मैं आपको बता रहा हूं कि इन तीनों के साथ में आने में उत्तर प्रदेश में बीजेपी 1 नंबर पर आने जा रही है। तो हमारा ये मानना है कि जो अलग अलग राज्य हैं, वो वहां पे भी जो वो ताकतें, जो सेकुलर फोर्सेस जो अपने तरीके से एसेट कर सकती हैं, वो वहां पे करें। तो आइडिया बहुत क्लियर है कि जो उत्तर प्रदेश में, जो जहां से हम लोग आते हैं, जहां की पॉलिटिक्स हम कर रहे हैं, उत्तर प्रदेश में बीजेपी आरएसएस का रोकने का इंतजाम अखिलेश यादव जी ने, बहन जी ने कर लिया है। वहां पे अब कुछ नहीं बचा है। हमारी फाइट,
आर यू सेइंग दैट देयर इज नो डोर ओपन फॉर द कांग्रेस? ये जो हम सुन रहे हैं कि कोई अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो सकती है, कुछ निगोशिएशन हो सकती है सपा के साथ फॉर मोर सीट्स, क्या वो दरवाजे बंद हैं?
निधि देखिए, सारी चीजें मैंने कहा कि जो अलायंस की होनी थी, जो सीटें डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होनी थी, वो सब कुछ हो चुका है। अब सीधे जो कांग्रेस की अपनी जिम्मेदारी है इस मुल्क के लिए, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के लिए, वो निभाएं, और हम लोग उसको निभाने जा रहे हैं। और ये एक बात समाजवादी पार्टी की तरफ से तय है कि इस सारे देश के जितने भी इंडिपेंडेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस थे, जिनको इन्होंने क्रश किया है, उसका इंतकाम उत्तर प्रदेश की जो कमजोर गरीब जनता है, जो उसके साथ 16 मई 2014 को जो फ्रॉड हुआ था, वो बंद है।
State wise understand. So Mr. Nigam, wouldn't you concede though that if at the state level, just going state by state, the opposition is able to succeed in coming together and creating problems for the BJP, that it does put up a pretty strong challenge if it is able to do that, just focusing on individual states?
You've yourself started with if. That big if is, we have been seeing since last 1 year, people meet in various capitals, then they forget each other. Now if you look at it, after what Mulayam ji said today, it has driven them into crisis mode, and therefore this meeting is taking place. And on the lighter side, if you
think the meeting is taking place because
Mulayam Singh, the crisis, yes, the crisis that has suddenly cropped in. One, and secondly, if you look at it, what Mulayam ji said, obviously out of courtesy, that all those present in the Lok Sabha should come back elected, which means 44 for Congress, 282 for BJP, and 332 for on the lighter side. I am saying so. That is what he is maintaining the position. Maintaining the position. मैं हम नहीं ले रहे हैं. आपने खुद बोला, उनको बोला नहीं.
इतना खुश कभी नहीं.
बात करेंगे
आपसे भी होगी. And what SP spokesperson wants Congress to do its constitutional duties without giving them any Lok Sabha seats.
No,
will Congress agree to that?
The SP-BSP alliance is formidable. You would concede that. So if those alliances hold in different states, it could pose a challenge.
See, it's about mathematics, and let's see what all surprises are there in UP in due course of time. And there are 4 points I would like to bring out about the inherent contradiction. The case against Akhilesh Yadav ji, started on account of the demand by Mayawati. And the case against Mayawati about a statue started on account of demand by Akhilesh Yadav. No. Let me establish my point. Okay. About Mamta Banerjee, the cases started chit fund scam on account of the demand by the Congress. And about Robert Vadra and Congress corruption, it started on demand of Kejriwal. So look at it.
And
people are watching,
they're all being
trying to. So therefore,
just before the election.
Anti-Modi, nothing else.
It's an anti. One second, but
nothing else.
Let me ask Amit Jamai. आज जो मुलायम सिंह यादव ने कहा, आप चौंक गए?
देखिए बीजेपी आरएसएस के लोग उस पर बहुत खुश हो रहे हैं। वो जब बाहर आए तो राजदीप सरदेसाई ने उनसे सवाल पूछा कि आपने क्या बोला। उन्होंने कहा भाई हमने तो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं कहा है, या आप क्या बोल रहे हो?
बाइट सुना देते हैं
हम आपसे ये कह रहे हैं कि और देखिए वो इस देश में मैं कह रहा हूँ वो इस देश के सबसे बड़े अजीम लीडर्स में से हैं और वो संसद के बतौर पैट्रॉन उन्होंने सभी को ग्रीट किया। अब आप बताओ ये ट्रेडिशन तो 5 साल में हमें कभी देखने को नहीं मिला जो हम उम्मीद करते थे। अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी साहब ने इंदिरा जी को क्या बोला था, दुर्गा का अवतार कह के उनको खिताब दिए थे।
आप क्या कह रहे हैं कि मुलायम सिंह यादव वाज बीइंग पोलाइट?
नहीं, यही शिक्षा, यही तालीम, यही जो इनको करना था जो ये नहीं किए, ये जो आदर्श उन्होंने खड़ा किया है। और दूसरी बात यह है कि जब अटल जी ने दुर्गा कहा तो पॉलिटिक्स कांग्रेस के खिलाफ थी। आज क्या हो रहा है, अगर नेताजी ने एक आदर्श के तहत ये बात बोली, सवाल ये है कि समाजवादी पार्टी के जो मेरे राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष हैं श्री अखिलेश यादव जी, उत्तर प्रदेश में आरएसएस का खात्मा हमने गोरखपुर से नूरपुर, कैराना, फूलपुर में इंतकाम लेना वो अब बंद नहीं होने वाला है। वो एक आदर्श था जो कि प्रधानमंत्री जी को करना था।
You are saying that this is a certain type of politics where he was being respectful. It is also true, Ruhi Tiwari, that Mulayam Singh Yadav had actually said the same thing about Dr. Manmohan Singh on the last day of Parliament before the general elections, I think in 2004. But you think that people are overreading what Mulayam Singh Yadav said, or that there is a genuine sort of churning and that Akhilesh Yadav is cringing right now?
Well, look, Nidhi, Mr. Yadav may well have just said it to be polite. Let me give him the benefit of doubt on that front. But the fact that this comes at a point when the opposition, including his own party, his son who leads the party, are trying to forge an alliance against the BJP. They've raised the stakes so much in trying to bring the BJP government down after the 2019 polls. Does the optics of it seem very awkward, very odd? And of course, it's something that has stunned the opposition and it has stunned the BJP also. I don't think the BJP was expecting this vote of confidence from Mr. Yadav. So whatever his intention and whether he meant it the way it came across, whether he meant to really praise Mr. Modi and say he should come back as PM, that's besides the fact. The fact is that it just seems like there is a disagreement within the opposition camp, and there is disagreement even within the Samajwadi party between the old guard and the young guard as to what they want.
Well, Raghav Chadha, your thoughts on what Mr. Nigam is saying, that this is an opposition that's meeting in panic because of what Mulayam Singh Yadav said?
Well, I don't think that what Mr. Mulayam Singh Yadav has said is any different from Mr. Yadav's statements over the last couple of years. He, along with his one of his brothers, has sided openly with the BJP and has been singing laurels for Mr. Modi. And I don't think he has any control over the current avatar of Samajwadi party anymore. I think it's Mr. Akhilesh Yadav who's the supremo, and it is his voice it is his statements that will have more weight as far as the cadre of Samajwadi Party is concerned or the people of Uttar Pradesh is concerned. As far as this particular meeting is concerned, I think over the last 5 years we have seen that Mr. Shah and Mr. Modi have destroyed every possible institution in this country. The social fabric of this country has been tinkered with. Irreparable damage has been caused to India's federal structure, where you have 4 senior most Supreme Court judges coming out holding a press conference and saying that democracy is under threat. In that context, I think all political leaders cutting across party lines, cutting across ideologies, deemed it fit to come together and address this issue. You have leaders from the left and the Trinamool Congress. Both of them have serious animosity among themselves. Both of them have had bitter fights in the past. Both these leaders, both these parties got together on the same stage, not because in their quest for power, but in their quest to save this country from those in power. And I think all political parties that got together today gave only one simple message, that the principles on the basis of which this beautiful republic of ours was built is under threat, and all of us need to come together to defeat BJP, to defeat Mr. Modi and to defeat Mr. Shah.
But एक बात राघव इस किस्से में जोड़ना चाहता हूं, चाहे शायद वो ये भूल गए कि जिस विवेकानंद फाउंडेशन जो इंडिया अगेंस्ट करप्शन को रन कर रहा था, जिसने कांग्रेस को डिस्टेबलाइज करके कांग्रेस मुक्त भारत का जो सपना था वो आरएसएस का था, जो इंडिया अगेंस्ट करप्शन ने किया। नेताजी मुलायम सिंह यादव से लेकर लालू प्रसाद यादव, सुनिए ना आप, सुन लीजिए, 2 लीडर देश के ऐसे हैं जिन्होंने आरएसएस बीजेपी से आज तक पूरे देश में कभी समझौता नहीं किया, और उत्तर प्रदेश में हमने आरएसएस के जो सपने थे 1992 से हम इसको चूर करते हुए आए हैं।
But Ruhi, on this point, Raghav, I'll just come back.
May I respond briefly? May I briefly respond to this, Nidhi?
Yeah.
Well, the accounts and the books of accounts of India against corruption were audited by the Ministry of Home Affairs on 3 occasions when the Congress was in the government, and in all 3 searches and all 3 investigations that was conducted by the MHA, not even once did they say that Vivekanand Foundation had anything to do with the funding of India against corruption. It was purely a crowd-funded movement, a crowd-funded organization. Such lies and such incorrect statements
2 ऐसे लीडर हैं जिन्होंने आरएसएस बीजेपी के साथ कोई समझौता नहीं किया।
Both of you are making Mr. Nigam smile as he's watching this exchange.
Well, पिछले 2 साल में मुलायम सिंह यादव नेताजी की अगर आप स्टेटमेंट्स देखें तो वो केवल बीजेपी के पक्ष में स्टेटमेंट्स दे रहे हैं। वो केवल प्रधानमंत्री मोदी की तारीफ
में देने से गोरखपुर आ गया, फूलपुर आ गया, नूरपुर आ गया, कैराना आ गया। राघव उस डिबेट में मत जाइए, राघव उस डिबेट में मत जाइए।
That has been won by the Samajwadi Party led by Akhilesh Yadav, not by Samajwadi Party led by Mulayam
आप उस डिबेट में मत जाओ, आप फंस जाओगे।
पार्टी led by Akhilesh Yadav,
आप फंस जाओगे, उस डिबेट में मत जाओ।
क्यों ना जाऊं? आपसे पूछ के थोड़ी जाऊंगा।
आपने कांग्रेस को यूपी में डिस्टेबलाइज किया, इंडिया अगेंस्ट करप्शन आरएसएस के बिहाफ पे आपने नहीं किया, आज आप देश को कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन समझा रहे हैं।
I'm just seeing the Mahagathbandhan unravel in front of my eyes, but on one second.
अगर देश के इतने अजीम नेताजी पे इस तरह से कमेंट करेंगे तो ये बात तो बर्दाश्त करनी नहीं
तो बताइए कि नेताजी ने तो ये बयान दिए हैं ना। अब जैसे आज आप कह रहे हैं that he was being respectful।
मैं यहाँ पर अलायंस पर बहस करने के लिए आया हूँ, और मैं ये बता रहा हूँ आपको,
इसका तो इम्पैक्ट होगा ना मुलायम सिंह यादव जो कहेंगे।
पार्टी के जो मेरे प्रेसिडेंट है वो श्री अखिलेश यादव जी हैं, हाँ, और उत्तर प्रदेश में जो हम करने जा रहे हैं वो बहुत क्लियर है कि बीजेपी आरएसएस को हम वहां पर 1 डिजिट में करने जा रहे हैं।
So, but Ruhi, the point is, even if there is confusion, even if there is this, we're going to fight at the state, but we're nationally together, even despite that, if they are able to get their act together state by state, do they not pose a big challenge? If this SP-BSP alliance holds the way that it did in the by-polls, and so far there are all indications that it will, let's see how it goes, then it is a pretty formidable challenge to the BJP, isn't it? If they're looking only at individual states.
Absolutely, Nidhi. That's exactly the point. It is a formidable challenge if they manage to have a concrete alliance. See, just these optics won't do. What the SP and BSP have done in UP is the right thing to do. They have a concrete alliance. They have a plan as to how to reduce the BJP's numbers in the state. But what Ms. Mamta Banerjee today said, on the other hand, is confusing because she's saying in the state she won't have an alliance with the left and Congress. So where is she going to have an alliance with them? I mean, I don't understand this concept of Ms. Banerjee saying that in nationally she's going to be with them, but not in the state. That state sends out 42 seats to the Lok Sabha. It's a very crucial state. Now, if in that state they don't have an alliance, what is the Trinamool Congress planning? Where is it planning to have an alliance with these parties? So you are very right. There should be state-by-state alliances, but I don't think they're doing that. Congress and AAP are not having an alliance in Delhi. Congress is now not, at least not for now, is not a part of the alliance in UP. So where are these alliances? The only parties that seem to have done a very good job of sealing it well in advance are SP and BSP.
Well, Mr. Nikam, doesn't it actually suit the BJP, you think? If there was a face such as Rahul Gandhi projected as the opposition's face, the fact that they're not doing that is an interesting strategy. They're not making this election about Rahul Gandhi and Narendra Modi. They're making it about state alliances to defeat the BJP government at the center. Well, what do you think of that strategy?
No, it's their strategy and they think it's a clever strategy. But the fact is, do they take voters for granted? That's the issue. The voters know that in West Bengal they are fighting with each other. In Kerala, the communists are fighting with the Congress. And the other point, let me make it, whenever there has been an alliance, and SP would bear me out on this, whenever there has been an alliance with the Congress, it's the Congress that gains at the expense of RJD in Bihar and at the expense of SP in UP. So they are taking the huge risk. These regional parties are taking a huge risk by aligning with Congress. The Congress may gain, the others may lose.
Well, that's for the voters to determine.
No, there are precedents. There are examples in the past from
but
UP
they're still
and
coming
Bihar.
together. They're still sitting with Sharad Pawar right now. They're still sitting on stage.
Panic reaction.
How a panic reaction? Well, it might not be necessarily just with what Mulayam Singh Yadav has said, but he certainly threw a googly today, which, like I said, really surprised a lot of people. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us.